about what can and will happen here. Of course, as Arjun looks like he's ready to go, locked and loaded with a hoodie on. So trying to stay very calm here. Sometimes it's cool with the air conditioner here. Very hot in Saudi Arabia. But we are here and we're bringing on our casters, Grandmaster Amon Hamilton and Grandmaster Eric Hansen, to call all of the shots.
Thank you very much, James. Getting into another big matchup here, and this one is in our upper bracket. Eric, that means we are dealing with two players that have already won a match.
Two winners. Yes. So we have Gen G, Arjun Erigaisi playing, I think that's a South Korean org, and MVL playing for Team Vitality. I believe they're leading the EWC overall.
That's right. Yep. I was just listening to Nemo on the analyst desk mention that, which is, it's critical, right? These players are playing for themselves. They're playing for the team, but also playing for something a bit larger as we get into this game, taking our seat here as the audience, and we're in a position that, might shock some of our viewers. How did we get here so fast, so confidently? Eric, this is what we call theory. This position has been looked at by the players before, and believe me, they know exactly what's going on here.
They do, and it used to be more popular. This line goes past move 30 in theory sometimes. So out of all the theoretical lines in chess, this actually is.
And for reference, we're on move 17.
We're on move 17.
There's a lot.
They can go a lot further. MVL's known as a theoretician. He'll play. He's been playing E4 his whole life. He knows these lines. But it's fairly forcing. One of the ideas for white, sometimes you'd like to play F5. Maybe not ready here. Oh, well, there you go. F5 is played. Want to harass, want to get to that king before black gets settled.
A lot of times, Eric, what we see is, even though this is a double question mark move, and, it definitely is, what you're seeing are variations where it's very difficult for one player to play. So even though F5 might not be the best move, it could be the case that either Maxime is confusing it from a different move that he was expecting from Arjun. He's familiar with this F5 idea in his study, his preparation, and he's going for it anyway, and maybe it's mistimed here. Or it's the case where he's actually evaluated, look, it's a kind of suspicious move. It's not the best, but it's difficult to react to. And the second that Arjun makes a mistake here, it could lose the game.
I think it's prep, and I think, as you mentioned, it's a line that if Arjun plays all the right moves, he's fine. But can you find all the right moves?
Exactly.
In this time control, so many lines to look at. It's a bit of a gamble, but one he's willing to take. I definitely think MVL, if he's entering this line, and he chose it to allow it, that he's got an idea here.
Yep, bishop c5. This is the move that it's calling for in the position, because immediately you're threatening bishop takes on d4. That is a check, and the knight on c3 would just be hanging afterwards. Bishop takes d4, followed by queen takes c3 is an immediate threat, which makes me think of maybe rook b1 to b3 in order to guard it. I'm not familiar with what MVL probably knows about this position.
Yeah, I have to say I haven't looked at this line for a while, but there's a threat on the board. This knight on c3 is going to be very loose. So sometimes you play a move like rook b3, rook a to b3, reinforcing it. And you want to use that rook. It hasn't moved, off the back rank, because the rook on b7 is pressuring that light squared bishop, making it hard for black to castle. So it's all about the initiative here, but Arjun, the speed that he's played his moves, it indicates he's still also in his understanding and his prep.
Yeah, and MVL, I will say, he is the type of player that he'll make fast decisions regardless. So we could be very deep in MVL's prep, but we could also be in a position where he's kind of remembering from a different variation. One thing about black is if he manages to castle, right? If Arjun castles kingside, ready and waiting is the idea of pawn to f6, queen to g5, and checkmate threats. So it's not that easy to get yourself castled here, but right off the bat, computer is liking Arjun's position, and the more that MVL spends time, Eric, I'm starting to think, hang on a sec, is he actually realizing that maybe this is not the position that he thought it was?
Based on the time usage, I think so. And what's black's next move? I mean, let's say let's say rook b3 is played, rook 1 to b3. What do you do after bishop c6. If you go
That's a great
rook b8,
question.
I castle. So that's a critical move because it's challenging that annoying rook on b7.
Yeah, that's critical.
I want to kick away. He takes first. That takes away some of those ideas you mentioned where white plays f6, tries to pry open the king side. Yes, d5, not here. It's not hanging because the knight's pinned, but in some positions, it could be a bit loose. But keep in mind, this is already a very open, loose position. The more it opens up, the stronger the bishop pair is, the stronger the bishops are. So that's not necessarily a bad thing for Arjun.
We see the move h4. MVL, he's definitely he's playing very loose this game. I can't say that, we're deep in theory anymore. He spent some time, and I think he's trying to make an attack work, but let's go for the simple bishop e6 here. What if Arjun plays bishop e6? It looks like he played pawn takes f5 in order to clear bishop e6, and that's exactly what's happened. Now, Eric, if we see the king castle kingside, there's not the same danger that we saw before. I mean, yes, there's a possibility of the queen getting to g5, maybe h5, h6, the rook on b3 swinging over. But I'm speaking in concepts here. Like, there's no actual threats.
No, I mean, the longer this goes on, the more I think, yeah, maybe MVL was freestyling this. And Arjun, after castling, has solved pretty much most of his problems. If you push that pawn to h5, I can consider playing h6 as black. Why allow you to play h6? And at the end of the day, black is up a pawn, and white has looseness everywhere. The knight on c3 is loose. It's pinned. e5 is loose. You've lost your f-pawn. h4, you keep pushing it down the board to h5. That's going to light square pawn. That's going to be loose in some positions too. The endgames look terrible. There's also this idea on the bishop takes b4, rook c4, using the c file, bringing that rook in, but you can probably play h6 first.
Yeah, he's going to do a little bit of both. I imagine that we will see h6 being played. I mean, what's happening here? Rook h4 is also coming.
d4 is coming, and the queen hits e5. You go queen, I don't know where you place your queen, but the pawn goes to d4, hitting the knight, hitting e5.
Yeah, I mean, rook h4 is threatened, d4 is threatened. Let's not forget, look at every single one of white's pawns. It's just all over the place. This has just been a terrible game so far by MVL. Arjun is just capitalizing.
And he can double on the c file. There's no back rank because the bishop on e6 watches over. You can afford to go rook c8 right now and question, where's that knight going? The knight's going to go to e2. That's the problem. If you go rook c8, knight e2, rook takes e2, there's knight d4. That might be more counterplay than he wants to allow. That's what he's calculating. He can also go d4 right away. But for sure, black is for choice. And in fact, I think this is a two-result game. Arjun has no more opening problems. When he plays h6, there's no more back rank thoughts whatsoever. And I'd like to think that that bishop, that material advantage,
he almost lost here because the rook on b3 is hit, the knight on e2 is hit. If you play rook b2, I mean d3, you keep the pawn. This is 100% over. Arjun might have just won the most one-sided game. It looked like MVL played f5 earlier, so sure that it was in his prep, but may have confused the lines. I'm not entirely sure there, but whatever happened, Eric, it's clearly not good.
No, this has been a disaster. This is a disaster to the highest degree. You have the white pieces. You play against the line that black uses to try to make a draw, try to force things off. It's a drawing line, not a winning line. MVL confidently played a few moves. Looks like he got things confused. And his only chance now, he's down 2 pawns, is to establish a dark square blockade. That means the rook on d2. That means swing the king over to e3 and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's really all you can do. The bishop on c4 guards the d-pawn, and the problem, Eric, is if you play king f2, king e3, and you think, okay, well, I'm ganging up on the d-pawn, I can just take that.
Look at that move. Look at that move. And it's over. And it's over. You take on a2, d2 queens. If you take on d3, bishop c4, and wow.
Amazing. It's already a win for Arjun Erigaisi and Genji in our upper bracket matchup. And MVL just, kind of shocked everyone here by immediately going for this variation. It seemed like theory. It seemed like a position that he would have seen many, many times before. But Eric, we're not exactly sure what happened, but I think he may have confused some of his variations.
Well, I can't argue against that. It's there's no way that was prep. You don't prepare to get a lost position, and not just a lost position, but there's no problem start. He just played a couple natural moves. It wasn't even hard moves, and all of a sudden, the initiative was extinguished. You're just left with a shattered position, and just a complete disaster. Now MVL has the black pieces needing to win on demand.
And you said it, it's the black pieces. That's the thing, because MVL had the white pieces there, and he didn't make anything of that game. So kind of a freebie to Arjun. And now MVL and Vitality are in a very tough spot, a must-win situation, but also must-win after a game like that. You're coming in with no momentum, a lot of self-doubt. How is he going to rebound?
He's spending the time in between the game, finishing and starting, thinking about what to play. What can he choose? Maybe not something super theoretical after what just happened. What can he choose to keep the board interesting? Because MVL's known he plays the Najdorf. He plays a lot of his black openings. They're fine. They're good openings, but they allow white to force things off or even trend towards a draw. The Najdorf, the Grunfeld, things like that. He's going to have to pull something out. I think he's going to go for the Najdorf if it's an E4 game. I don't think it necessarily will be. But yeah, we're going to go straight to game 2. MVL down a point, playing black against Arjun Erigaisi, needing to win on demand.
That's right. It's a tough ask for any player because you're up against some of the best players in the world. But what we have here, Eric, is a Queen's Indian defense. So definitely getting that in balance. But I will say, normally in this opening, it's kind of at the cost of a slightly worse position. You know, this Queen's Indian is not the most favorable opening. We've seen some of the top chess engines in the world just absolutely dismantle this one. But when you need to imbalance the position, play for a win, it's certainly still up there.
I can't remember watching MVL play Queen's Indian like this before. So this is going to be interesting.
This is a shock decision, you think? Just, you know, realizing...
Can't do the Grunfeld.
Right.
No.
You know, there's only so many openings that you can choose. You know, players have their repertoires as well, their specialties. So you generally want to stick to that as well. We see C5 coming out. And the thing about C5 here is normally white wants to react with D5, but not sure it was available there. I mean, the position that we're seeing here does not look too promising, but maybe it'll be a longer game. Kind of that hedgehog structure that we've seen in earlier match.
Hedgehog structure, and as black, he's going to want to keep the queens on the board. He's okay taking a space disadvantage as long as he keeps his options open. But with knight c6, that's interesting.
Yeah, there's not a huge advantage to play for here. Let's just say it out loud. The position is extremely equal, and if anything, normally white is thought to be doing pretty well in these positions. The main breaks for black are going to be b5 and d5. So that would mean playing a6, playing b5, or going straight for the d5 move. But these breaks are usually enough to equalize the position, not for anything too much more than that. Equality is not good enough here.
It's a type of equality in like a symmetrical position. It's not even like equality in a tricky, imbalanced position where it can be dynamically equal. Here, after rook d1, MVL is really thinking, is he going to try to play d5? That might be the principled move, but for the match situation, maybe he's thinking to play knight e5, try to play a6 and d6, get those hedgehog moves played, and not maybe punish white's move order because he can't afford to just simplify too much.
Yeah, and when we say hedgehog, we're referring to the 6th rank for black having a large number of pawns. So, for example, a6 would bring a pawn up to the 6th rank. d6 would as well. h6 by black. And it's that hedgehog structure where it doesn't seem to be doing that much, but if you go aggressive, you will get pricked.
Yeah, if white, one thing about white's position that's making it a little tricky, not tricky, but maybe not ideal, is that queen on c2. If it was on d1 or f3, like then you would take on c6. You would love to take on c6 and have a queen on f3. You can block the check, you can trade things off. Life is good. Here, you're a bit hesitant about taking on c6 as white because it gives queen c6 check, and you're not sure how to defend against that check. If you play f3, that might give squares. If you move your king down, you're just giving maybe black a diagonal. So Arjun's completing development. He's still playing standard. And that's probably a smart thing. He's not rushing to trade if the trade is at a slight negative.
Yeah, and he might do it now because the queen has moved. That does make sense. If you capture the knight and the queen recaptures, it's as if you got your last move for free because black has wasted time by playing queen b7. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it now. The other option is you can just take the center with e4. One reason why he might not want to play pawn to e4 is it does present itself as a target as well. So he decides to do it. I think it might have been the best move, Eric, but if you're MVL, I don't think you'd be too upset. It's kind of the best that you have.
You won't be upset, but I think it was the right decision by Arjun because that queen on c2 that I didn't like, it's going to slide over to e2. Then there's no more c-file pins. Then your queen is going to support the e4 pawn, and then you're really ready to take on c6. So the queen, I think this is a good move, still sticking to his guns. Yeah, knight takes d4, rook takes d4. Every time MVL is considering exchange, he has psychological pressure on himself. Is that exchange really, really going to give me enough chances to outplay my opponent? And he would much rather not have to trade. But how can he continue playing this position without trading? Knight e5, d6. All of a sudden, in a few more moves, if white gets in queen e2, rook c1, white can probably claim to have a small but stable space advantage, small edge, and even without trades, it's an easy to play position.
That's exactly right. Pawn e4 has just been played MVL thinking because he has to make sure that he leaves some life in the position. You know, knight takes c6 because of queen e2, Eric. Maybe now is the moment. You could take on c6 just to get more trades in, then slide the queen to e2. We would be headed to maybe queen f3, which is what you mentioned earlier. He decides not to take. This is perfectly fine, but you know he's always going to be looking for those moments.
I think taking on c6, it's just every decision.
Just to simplify, yeah.
It's just to simplify, but he's being like, you know what, I won't trade yet. I'm going to let you trade or you have those decisions. Maybe psychologically he'll feel a bit worse if it feels like he's the one just like forcing trades and like really pushing that, but it was totally fine in MVL now. So maybe this could be a regret depending on how the game goes. Arjun had an opportunity to trade. He has a different way of trying to win this match, Amon. He could have traded and that was totally fine. And I really think it takes away some of the opportunities to lose by getting rid of that knight. When there are two knights on the board, there's forks, there's dynamic potential, but at the same time, Arjun's being like, if you don't trade, I'll have a better position, and he's demonstrating that. Look at this knight to f3 move. He's ready to push that e4 pawn to e5 because it's no longer pinned, and slowly but surely, white has the Maroczy bind structure. The d5 break is no longer possible. The b5 break is no longer possible. The knight on g6, without more help, isn't really doing anything on the f4 pawn. So white might be preparing to double rooks on the d file, maybe preparing to play pawn e4 to e5, and just squeeze the life out of the position. When I go pawn e4 to e5, then I might go queen e4. Then I can actually maybe even offer a queen trade, but under good circumstances, with a nice and healthy space advantage. And what I really want to do, MVL is a tactical player. I don't want that queen on b7. I don't want any diagonals. I don't want any pins. And look at that move, Amon.
I mean,
wow.
We can just say time and time again that b5 is not possible, but look at b5, proving us wrong. MVL goes for the typical break, but I'm telling you, this is the most atypical move you will ever see. b5 has never looked like this. It can be taken two different ways. If it's captured with the knight, the e4 pawn loses protection. Knight takes b5, knight takes e4. If it's captured with the pawn, bishop b4, and immediately you have the idea of capturing, taking on e4, the entire complexion of the game has changed. And if MVL takes on e4, Eric, and then also manages to put pressure on b5, he's doing quite well, especially when you think of he needs to win.
He has the imbalance that he was looking for. He is very happy with this. By the end of the day, he earned it. That b5 move is so easy to miss. It looked so defended, so protected. But now all of a sudden, white, like MVL doesn't mind losing because he's in a must-win situation.
Exactly.
So white has a 3-on-1 when you look at the b file, the double pawns. It can be supported in the future when you drop back your bishop. You can play a4 after bishop d4. You can get this majority going at the same time. Black has that queen on b7, the 5-on-3 on the king side. And he's going to attack the king. He's going for the win. So maybe I want to prepare. Maybe I play pawn f5 and I just keep my knight on e4 harassing. Maybe I go pawn d5. Maybe I go pawn d6 and try to play E5, no matter what, we know MVL is going to play on the king side because that's where he has an advantage. And Arjun's job is to push the queen side and reduce black to a passive position by forcing his hand, by getting a pass pawn or a threat big enough that MVL is going to have to start watching over that. So I don't know how that's going to look. H4, this fishing move, yes, he's creating more weaknesses around. At the end of the day, he still needs more. He needs more. How does he generate pressure on the knight on F3? It can be pinned in the future, but right now there's no good square to do that. H4 is a tricky move. In some positions, you don't take on G3, just leave it there, harass your opponent, and maybe you wait long enough, there might be a right time to play H3 check. And when you ever get upon an H3 and it stays there, then you have mating ideas, then you have back rank ideas. So he's fishing, and he's doing a good job of that. But Arjun, not down too much on the clock, so not phased too much yet. But this is a critical moment. How does he stop MVL's initiative?
And I think it's clear that you don't want to play D5. I think a lot of MVL's play is coming from that queen on B7. Amazing long diagonal. So I liked your idea of F5. Then also maybe the knight on G6. Yes, it's threatening the F pawn right now, so H4 is possible. But once you deal with H4, maybe capture on G3, maybe play H3. I think you want to reroute that knight to the E7 square. Knight E7, knight F5, knight E7, knight D5, coupled with your F5 move. I think that the knights want to occupy those light squares in the center, and there will be a lot of threats that Arjun will have to deal with.
Playing on the light squares is definitely right. So I don't know. F5 is a move, but moving a knight to F5 is a move. You know, I was thinking about with F5, I might want to play King F7 in the future. But
knight
D6, opening up that diagonal for the queen, preparing for that to go to F5. I also don't mind that. Like, lots of tricky moves for MVL here. He's got to be happy with how the position has changed, and white is under pressure. White is absolutely under pressure.
We talked about you know, the queenside play for white. It should be noted, Queen E3 actually did put pressure on A7. So you could play a move like Bishop takes A7 here, and he actually did it. I wasn't sure if he would follow through on it here. I was going to say Knight F5 plus the move H3, and you know, everything is getting destabilized a little bit. Eric, I think this is a moment for Maxime to really strike. He needs something aggressive because the bishop on A7 has got away with a free one, and E5 has been played.
He needs to do it while the bishop's there. It's out of play. White's moving backwards, and look at this E5 move. You're threatening maybe E4. Why E4? You can go E3 check in the future. If the queen blocks on F3, there might be a knight H4 check, forking the queen. So this is a huge move because, I mean, Arjun realizes now his king side is crumbling.
Yep.
And when your king side is crumbling, you want to trade off the queens. That queen on B7 is such a menace, but you can trade it off. You go queen B6, I go queen A8 or queen E4. You're not booting me off. After king H2, as I said, the king side is being blown up. Whether or not he survives is a different thing, but black's goal was to find targets.
He absolutely did.
The target is right there on F4.
He absolutely did. This game, look at the position. The white king is completely open. There's only one pawn spanning from the C to the H file. Knight H6, immediate threat on G4. And the queen on F2 has to stay guarding the bishop on A7. It's very annoying. We might also see a move like D6, queen D7. That queen can shift over to the king side very, very easily. So this is exactly the game that MVL wants. He's up almost a minute and a half, and Eric, he is generating some serious threats. He's not winning just yet, but this is the exact game that he needs.
Two knights, and they have targets, they have forks. Arjun is up 3 pawns on the queen side, but he has no time to push any of them. No time to use that at all. So in the context of the game, black is doing well. Even like just objectively, black is doing very, very well here. His initiative has come in first. White moving the king to G3. That's certainly not what you signed up for. And look at that. Okay, knight G5, queen here. The good thing for Arjun, though, is his bishop's no longer hanging.
Queen F3,
so queen F3 is that stable move he's been looking for that he couldn't get away with. So MVL, in the last couple of moves, it makes sense to transfer the queen over, but was it the right time? Because allowing Arjun to put his queen on F3, covering that long diagonal, covering G4, that looks like a huge improvement.
And you know what? I could even see some positions where white loses potentially a knight. some material. And don't forget, there's 3 connected pass pawns on the queen side. So as long as you maybe trade the queens, even if you lose a knight as well, the queen side is completely over for MVL. So you have to be very, very careful that your attack actually crashes through, because the game's going to end if you don't succeed on the king side here.
Yeah, b6 and b7, that's only 2 squares away. That bishop pushes it through. This is time for a big move for black. And if I'm black, I know for sure I need to keep the queens on the board, and I need to improve my knights.
Well, there's a move. It seems like MVL always finds a way to try to rise to the occasion. He found b5. He found e5. Now he's coming with knight e5. If you take it, the g5 knight is also hanging. Queen e4. Surely it's queen g4. What the heck is happening?
What a sharp position. So many things are happening. Is that king safe on f2? The good thing for Arjun, he can allow a perpetual.
That's right.
MVL has to go for more than that. So you can't just keep checking. You need to check with purpose. What you really want to do is put Arjun's king on a square that's vulnerable to checks, and then keep it there. You don't want to check it away from that. You just want a chaotic board where the king is in the middle, and you have all these forks and things to watch out for.
You know what I realized? Queen h7 exists. Like, it's there for later. So as soon as the position's not checked, it's actually MVL that has to be really careful. If you play knight g4 here, Eric, I don't even know what's happening. Queen h7 might even lead to a mate for white.
Yeah, queen h7 is very close to a mate. And now we have a critical decision. He's almost running out of checks.
Yep. He decided to block queen h7, but look, it's almost like white is on the attack now. The bishop's coming back, hitting the queen. The queen h1 is covered by the queen on e4. There's no more checks, and those pawns are rolling.
White is on the attack because black can't afford to trade. He's using that against him. Queen h5, if queen f3, he's going to go knight g4. Is that enough? I'm not sure, but he knows for sure I cannot trade queens under any circumstance. Arjun's using that to his advantage, but guess what? He's down a minute and a half plus. So if this continues, this position with queens on the board with like less than a minute, oh, that is so hard to play, even if you calculate amazingly. Arjun's playing great, great, great defense here, but he can't afford to keep going down on the clock.
He can't afford to keep thinking. He needs to make a move. So, you know, if anything, b6. If you're not sure, I think b6 works.
And just
we know that g4. Did he find the right idea?
Is that getting the queens off?
Look at MVL's face. He knows that was a huge find right there. If the queens get traded, as I mentioned earlier, even at the cost of, you know, maybe all the pawns on the king side, it doesn't matter. Those pawns on the queen side will win the game.
Incredible. The queen cannot move. We have a queen trade, and Aman.
He spent time. He invested time in that move. That was the right decision, Eric. Even though he spent like 30 seconds on it, he's completely winning here.
So if you go rook b7, you can't go. Well, you can go b6, but you're allowing knight e3 check. It could still be fine.
I would have considered it, but no, he's going back, bishop d4, wants to advance slowly, bit by bit, but he needs to get things going. He only has a minute, and look how fast MVL is playing. He has 2 minutes and 39 seconds, but he's playing like he has 10 seconds because he's trying to put the pressure on.
Here come the pawns, and now white can afford to give back material because connected pass pawns usually overwhelm a rook, especially if you have additional pieces. So the problem with MVL is he can't even win material here. He can't. He needs to just prolong the game. Material's not enough. He's down too much.
He's pushing all the way.
That's not it.
Oh my goodness. D2 is available, forks the rooks, but there's a rook hanging on b7, so these pawns are going all the way.
You can maybe play rook d1. MVL is doing the right thing. He's not winning material. That's not enough. He has to keep the board dynamic, make the decisions hard.
40 seconds. Eric, this is a time trial at this point. Can Arjun win before time expires?
He's willing to give up in exchange.
He's losing an entire rook here.
2 connected pawns on the 6.
We've talked about how strong they are. Knight g3.
What a move. But wait.
What the heck is happening here? There's also no good checks because the knight on g3 will be hanging.
Oh, no, he didn't need to do that. His king was safe.
If the queen moves, the g3 knight can be taken here.
What a find.
And this position, it doesn't even matter anymore because it's messy. This is exactly what MVL needs for a flag.
Yeah, white could still be winning or doing really well, but no time. Those pawns, you want to push them, but you have to watch out for checkmate. They're so clumsy when you're under 30 seconds. And look at that move.
Knight f5, he's taking it right away.
Yes, knight d4 check, that's a great tactic.
The pawn can be taken.
Seconds.
Oh, he's panicking now. This is
F6.
not enough. Black is actually better.
He's going to play f6 at some point, take away the g5 square for the knight.
Yep.
Oh, he goes for more.
He's trying to, okay, knight g5 is a threat, but look, at this point, with 20 seconds left, black has done more than enough. The b6 pawn is defended by the bishop on g1. He also can't take a draw.
19 seconds, he needs to come up with something.
MVL cannot repeat. Arjun would love that. Of course, that would win him the match. MVL needs to win.
What's being threatened here? What's MVL thinking about?
No, he King G8 I would play.
That's a good pre-move.
King
But
G8.
he's down a minute.
Yep, get out of the pin. Finally, use that knight. Bring it into the game. Knight G4.
Black needs to get the knight on a good square like E4, knight D6.
There it is.
But he's going to... Oh, King G2, Queen D5?
Also, remember, Rook C7 is coming.
16 seconds.
Threats on G7. If White pulls this off, this will be incredible.
He's getting ready to pre-move.
I'm waiting for Rook C7. Remember, B7 can't happen. It's being controlled. The Queen is also pinning the knight here.
MVL's willing to sack that knight for a pawn if it gets too far. And then he's going to use the queen to check and check and check.
I'm surprised by knight F7. It feels like he's going to the wrong side of the board, but oh no, he drops the B pawn.
And now it's 55 to 10 and you don't even have that pass pawn.
Don't even have that dangerous pass pawn. Queen E4.
And that hangs the rook. There's Queen C4. Everything's hanging here.
It's a messy game. The players are not going to play perfectly, but with 6.5 seconds left, MVL knows he's done enough to bring this back and level it at 1-1.
4 seconds, not enough time, and the position's not enough. Wow.
No, this is incredible. 2.5, it's just a matter of running out the clock, and despite some decent pre-moves here, it's too little, too late, and MVL and Team Vitality bring it back to a level match at 1-1.
That is incredible. He found a couple knight moves, found the way to promote that queen. He earned it.
Yeah, I mean, think about how a queen just appeared on the board out of nowhere there. The calculations were insane, and let's not forget, he found move after move, B5, E5, knight E5, probably like 2 to 3 moves that were brilliancies, if not credited, but that was amazing to watch.
It was amazing. Arjun was playing so well up until like even the very end. Like even when he was the one time and with 20 seconds he played well, but that time advantage was too much in the end. And MVL though did such a good job to keep things complicated, even in the face of that A pawn, that B pawn reaching all the way to B6. You couldn't cash in your chips. You needed to go for broke. You need to find some sort of continuation, and he found a continuation when Arjun missed a random like knight check from behind. Like,
incredible.
It wasn't the obvious moves. It wasn't knight E3. It wasn't like trying to promote the D pawn directly.
And here are the bids. It looks like 8 minutes 4 seconds, 7 minutes 52 seconds. We know with Armageddon, the lower bid takes the black pieces, which means that should be MVL with the black pieces and 752. Do you think either player will be too unhappy with that? You know, it's not like he got outbid by too much, but I will say, compared to an earlier bid that we saw from Levon, Eric, that's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. I think Arjun right now needs to just stabilize his thoughts. He played fantastic. You know, against most players, he would have won that game. He found the way to get the queens off. The technique was so good. But MVL showing why he's considered one of the best players in the world in speed chess. Using that clock.
Yeah. We are looking at the Armageddon graphic right here. The time, those are the bids that you see on your screen right there. And Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Team Vitality, 7 minutes 52 seconds. He will have draw odds, Eric, for this match, but truly, looking at what we've seen in both games so far, I'm wondering if draw odds even matters. No,
the way these guys are playing, it's not sure. You know, I'm thinking about that game I'm on. And we were talking about Arjun could have traded knights in the end. MVL having 2 knights, you saw what he did with that.
Made the difference. That's
crazy.
Right.
He used those 2 knights and he just caused problem after problem for Arjun. Even when the queens were off, it was those 2 knights that, you know, really helped with the time trouble. In this game, this really opens things up for MVL. Now he had to win his black. Now he has to draw his black. So yes, he has less time, but having draw odds is so much more comfortable.
It is.
He's got to be confident.
Yeah, and despite that, Eric, it's also the case that we can say a lot of good things about the way that Arjun played as well. That was a back and forth game. It was highly tactical. It was an absolute mess on the chessboard. There was a king with 1 pawn defending it for I don't know how many, 20 moves in a row. So Arjun, he defended so well, but that was just not the game that he wanted at all. You mentioned he should have maybe traded the knights, gotten a much cleaner, safer position. All he needed was a draw, and he was playing like just an absolutely crazy game. Yeah,
if I'm in Arjun's shoes, I'm a little unlucky that I'm in Armageddon because it felt like overall he played high level in both games, and he really didn't miss much. But all it took was time trouble and an interesting position, and MVL had a few chances. So a bit frustrating. I think Arjun's still playing really, really well. So I don't think he's like too frustrated.
No.
If he plays the way he's been playing, he knows he's been able to put pressure on MVL. He's gotten winning positions in both games. You know, he's tactically right there. If he had more time, that position definitely was playable. But we're going to jump straight to the Armageddon, I think.
Yeah, we can't miss this one. We have Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. We saw his bid, and Arjun gets the white pieces, but he gets the full time, so he'll be enjoying that time advantage as well. This looks like a replay of what just happened. Honestly, the end of these games is so tense. And this was...
Wow, Armageddon, boys, Armageddon. Man, that was incredible, especially with the fines and the time that MVL pressured Arjun on. Take us through that last 30 seconds or so there, Aman, of what happened there. And of course, a lot of people at home are trying to figure out, whoa, what just happened? Armageddon, this is crazy. A lot of the things that you guys were saying too as well, some people may not at home figured out what happened yet.
Yeah, I mean, most importantly, the match is tied. So we're going to Armageddon to settle that tie, but it was tied in such a crazy way. I mean, we just saw MVL find, I mean, let's go back to B5, E5, Knight E5. Right. Every single one of these moves, to me, in some way deserved a brilliancy. It was the move that the position needed to keep that attack going. And if he didn't find that one move at that moment, I was thinking we might just trade a bunch of pieces and it would be a draw.
Eric, who has the momentum right now? This is very important.
It's MVL, because I don't think he's played like Arjun has played well in really both games, but it's a tied match. Like it's just about getting the win. And MVL, against all odds, I'm sure he was looking at the position. He realized he was lost. And he still kept finding all the moves, and he's got to feel so good about that. And he has that ability in him. He's beaten the best players. He's beaten Magnus in multiple, speed chess matches before. If he gets into form, and this is the type of thing that gets you into form. This is that momentum changer. It hasn't been pretty, but he got the job done. And even finding moves like B5 early on to even just make the position dynamic, that's MVL. That's the MVL that we recognize. So I'd have to think he's got the momentum.
And of course, with the time right now, the bid that he won 7:52 around there, and actually, bidding better than Arjun there. So Arjun gets to 10 minutes. That's not that bad of a bid there, right? Come on, 7:52 is enough time.
It's a lot of time. And you know what? I think the other thing, James, is that these two players, they go at it. So I don't think that the draw odds means that much because we've seen both games bloodbath, right? So I don't think it means that much. And we saw the bids are actually very close and very high bids, 8 minutes, 7 minutes. It shows that they're fine to take the white pieces as well.
Well, of course, as games are about to start here, we have Arjun and MVL in a Armageddon. What you got, Eric?
Well, I think it affects things a bit. MVL had to win with black. Now he has to draw. His repertoire, he can play it now. Because before, he does have some lines, some openings that they're really good, but they allow forcing lines. Now, that pressure's off. That's why I feel like he has the momentum.
Yeah, with Nightorth, of course, Nightorth and Grunfeld, you know, absolutely. With Eric being a Grunfeld monster himself, knows exactly what's going on here in Arjun. Stoic, ready to go here. This will be a decisive game here. All right, boys, we're going to give it to you, and you guys are going to, tell us what's going on in this Armageddon game. We'll be watching from the sidelines.
Thank you, James. Excited to get into this one. Eric, this is where everything gets decided, and we haven't really harped on this enough, but this is in the upper bracket, which means that we're about to witness one of these players win their second match, right? And that is what's necessary to move forward in the competition. So talking about the Grunfeld, Eric, take it away.
No, I mean, the stakes are really high. You win, you advance, you get day 2 off.
Exactly.
I mean, but MVL has been playing the Grunfeld his whole life. He might know it better than anyone else at this stage. But Arjun, he probably has prep for it. Last game, he played D4, and he was open to it.
Yep.
And here we have a position. Black gets the bishop pair. White uses his H-pawn. I mean, I have to say, like, I'm very curious what Arjun has prepared, because usually in the lines that black gets the bishop early, they don't have the highest reputation for white. Uh, it's not the craziest lines, because even if you push this h-pawn down the board, which we've seen, there's no dark squared bishop for white, and you'd love to play moves like pawn to e4 and try to push and squeeze and threaten e5, but the bishop pair makes it very tricky. The knight's pinned. So I think what we're going to see here is Arjun's going to try to win the light squared bishop. Now, it might be bishop e2 and knight d2 and play a bit positionally. Because forcing lines, you don't want to do that against MVL in a must-win game unless you really think like he's forgotten something. Okay, that happened in one of the games, but there's forcing lines in the Grunfeld that just lead to equality, and MVL has less time. You don't want him to have easy moves. You don't want him to play theory for 20 moves and have 6 minutes on the clock for an endgame. You want tough decisions, and at least here with the pawn on h6, queens are on the board, you have that. But I'm still curious. MVL, you know why he's not defending b7? He's saying, if you take b7, I go rook b8, I win b2. If you don't take b7, what am I trying to do as black? I want to play c5 or e5 and just challenge that center, get rid of it, and then things will be pretty equal. So it's up to Arjun to maintain, make it as hard as possible for MVL to play c5 or e5 and get easy equality.
Yeah, you know, there's a possibility here for MVL to take on b3, exchange the queens, maybe even play bishop takes f3. I'm not sure if we want to include that or not, but the point being to play c6, maybe a6, and go ultra solid, saying that he only needs a draw. That looks pretty tempting to me, Eric. Is that top of your mind?
No, it's not MVL's style too much, unless he really thinks it's forcing. Because even if you get rid of your bishop pair, white takes, it's still dynamic. Like bishop pair positions you can play on for a long time. And we've discussed, if you're in a time scramble under 2-3 minutes, if a player's a little bit better with a bishop pair, they can massage that for a long time. So I don't think he's going to necessarily be happy to trade that bishop unless it's combined with e5 or c5. Because if it's not combined with that, well, white's light squared bishop is good. So if you take on f3 and you don't have e5 or c5, bishop takes f3, g takes f3. I push that f3 pawn to f4. Then you don't have a chance to play e5 anymore. So it has to come all in one motion. Take on f3 and go e5. I'm not seeing that yet. It might be around in the position. MVL's calculating that, but that doesn't help his time situation.
And you mentioned a style thing. That's just not MVL's style. Other players, you know, might look at the situation in Armageddon and say, that's my best chance at, you know, total equality. I might not have a plan, but neither does my opponent. He gives away the bishop here. I'm wondering if it's going to be connected with queen takes b3. If I'm looking at this position, Eric, it basically looks like a worse version of the position we could have had, because why would you not want white's a pawn doubled on b3?
Yeah, I mean, he's played it. It's not his style, but we know it's not natural for him, or he would have played it right away even a couple of moves ago.
It looks reluctant.
It looks reluctant, and Arjun has to be happy. Okay, when you have a pawn on h6, there's some things to talk about. Even if the queens are off, the pawn on h6 can harass the back rank. That means white needs to keep enough material for that to be meaningful, because if you trade off too much, notice that pawn is on h6 is a dark square. So if you trade off too much, black plays bishop f8, and then all of a sudden the h6 pawn is going to be loose in many lines. So white has to, like, you know, keep enough material on the board. If files open up and he keeps the pawn on h6, that's good. If files open up and h6 falls, then it's immediately, there's no more advantage. And I think if I'm playing in Arjun's situation here, I'm making trades as hard as possible. At least this trade, if it's a trade, that h6 pawn isn't falling the way I was describing. But what's the feature here? The knight can go to g8 in some endgames. And to be perfectly honest, I think MVL is doing very, very well.
I agree. This looks, I mean, that trade right there really helps out, and I don't think
know
it was
why he offered
necessary.
the trade. I was saying you should make it hard to trade, and as soon as I said that, he offered a trade. So I was like questioning myself. But I look at this position, and there's only one thing for white to do. You have a nice pawn structure in the center. It's a pawn structure that's only nice if it stays like that.
Exactly.
You can't touch any of those pawns or something gets loose. The h6 pawn is stuck there. Your only play is on the b file, on the queen side. You have to shift the pieces over and use a minority attack. MVL, he's ready for that. And at the right moment, maybe he swings the knight back to c7. I don't think it's enough. Again, as long as pieces are on the board, at least one thing to notice, black's pawns are on light squares. So if Arjun can keep that light squared bishop on the board, there could be some end games where that light squared bishop puts pressure on the king side and the queen side, but he's got to prolong it. He can't allow any more easy trades. That's too much.
Yeah, it already looks like a big achievement for MVL here. It's just a position that is very difficult to make progress. Black doesn't need to do anything. Now, one of the reasons why I also didn't like that decision from Arjun is because we're in this position, and what I would say is just too early. If both players had 2 minutes less on the clock, 3 minutes less, that would make a big difference. But 4 minutes for MVL, 7 minutes for Arjun, that is a lot of time.
This is a great move. F5 is maybe counterintuitive. It's on a light square, but it freezes the pawns in the middle. You can't even play E4 now because then you're left with isolated pawns everywhere. And that knight can, when it goes to F6, it has access to G4. G4 is a better square than G8 if you want to attack H6. It can swing over to D5. There's a lot of pressure on Arjun here. MVL is going to have to watch out to make sure he doesn't fall behind on the clock too much more, because if they're just shuffling back and forth, that's going to favor Arjun.
This is just not good enough, though. What is Arjun going to do? Yes, knight g4 is not the biggest problem, because knight takes h6, you could meet that with rook h1. You win the h7 pawn. But it's always there, which means you always need to have a rook available to play rook h1. What we're seeing is b5, right? That is the main break in the position. We already talked about e4 is just no good. But b5 needs some preparing. Most of the time, you could consider taking with the c pawn and then playing a5 with a pass pawn.
You can consider that. You also consider that your rook on the a8 has access to squares. And a thing to look out for here is white cannot trade off the rooks. You don't want a bishop versus knight endgame. Even with the pawns like this, if the bishop can't access any of those pawns, then the weakest pawn on the board is h6, and black can just hold. It all comes down to b5, and if you're Arjun, you want to shuffle as long as possible without trading anything before playing b5. You want to play b5 at a moment where MVL doesn't have too much time to think about it. So even now, don't worry about knight g4. If you take, there's rook h1 as you mentioned. So I'm actually probably just prolong the game. Unfortunately, MVL's play is really easy, and it's not going to get tricky for him until he's under a couple minutes. Can Arjun find ideas besides b5 between now and then?
Well, the thing about b5 is very committal. So you kind of want to save that for, we talk about the 50 move rule in chess. If you play, 50 moves without any action, it just becomes a draw. But you kind of want to play as many moves as possible, like 45 moves of shuffling. That will reduce the time. Then b5. Then play that move later.
He is doing that, which is good. But then he's going to have to watch out for repetitions soon. We've had this structure before with that bishop on c2 and rook on c5. He has to be a little bit careful.
Yep, he's done a good job. And remember, always have a rook on the first rank. When knight f6 is there, you just want to be able to play knight g4 and have that rook h1 move available. b5 is going to happen soon, probably in the next 10 moves. Let's see.
If it doesn't, they're repetition ideas, because the MVL's putting his pieces on the exact same square. So Arjun smartly puts his king on e2.
That's smart.
He needs to change it slightly, and then it resets.
Okay, but obviously the king on d3, not as well placed as on f3. I don't think you want your king on the d file facing the black rook on d6 if you're thinking about playing b5.
I think he might be doing it to bait MVL, because that might get him to think, oh, there's a king on d3, maybe I can target that. That causes time. That's a different thought. Right now MVL's in just repeat move mode, right? He's just going knight d5, knight b6, knight f6, repeat, repeat, repeat. Sometimes you play a risky move and your opponent gets excited, and then they forget what kind of brought them the success in the position they had. And so I understand what Arjun's doing there, and it might be pretty smart, because we know that he has to prolong the game before playing b5. b5 has not been good at any moment we've seen yet. It's playable, but we'd much rather play under a minute.
And it's pure shuffling here. And it has to be said, MVL is playing a little bit quicker than Arjun, but that's okay, right? Arjun has that time to spare, so he'll sacrifice a minute of his clock for 30 seconds of MVL's.
Yeah, he can afford to trade off a little bit. Every 2 seconds of mine, maybe 1 second of yours, or something like that. But He does have to watch out for repetitions.
Just for clarity, Eric, I just had a brief look. A4 was played on move 30. That was what I can see is the last pawn move. We're on move 60 right now. Just as I say that, there is a pawn move because, you know, the players don't know exactly how many moves it's been, but it feels like a while.
It feels like a while. If he had access to that, he'd probably wait a bit longer because he's got another 15 moves at least.
Yep, and you want to maximize, but he's gone for it, and now we have a new position in front of us.
Okay, a little bit of pressure here. I mean, yes, the king probably doesn't want to be on B3 square, but he's achieved B5.
This is something.
He can bring his king back to C2, maybe play a rook on A2, cover the checks.
The H6 pawn could be very, very valuable. I think that MVL might actually be considering trying to play knight to F7 in order to get a hold of the H pawn.
He wants to play knight F7, but he wants to offer a trade first.
Yep.
Because knight F7's in his pocket. So if rook A6, then he takes. Bishop A6, he couldn't play. There's knight E4 check, actually, so that wasn't even playable. But yeah, MVL knows he always has knight F7. The problem for white is there's no passed pawns. Even if you win the pawn on the queen side, you have no passed pawns, and then black can take H6. So that's another problem here, is what does Arjun do? E4, exactly. Pushing in the center, MVL down to 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And we're still far away from an endgame where black can really shuffle comfortably.
And remember, if we get to like some rook endgame, you can shuffle with the intent to flag, right? All you need is to probably shave about minute and a half off the clock here for Maxime. And Arjun has done a really good job, Eric, keeping up the speed as well. We know MVL is going to play quick, but Arjun has matched that, and he's still got that time advantage from the Armageddon bids.
And now he still has the pawn on H6. The knight's far away from that. That H7 pawn could be weak in some lines that open up. I'm looking at rook C3 to go king E3. I thought the king was knight on E3. But D5 is...
just an immediate move. I mean, he's definitely going to take on F5. And I think that,
my goodness.
I think that Maxime said, oh, no problem. You'll take on H7. I'll take on H6. But that's not necessarily the move that's going to be played.
Because he can throw in rook H1 first, or now maybe he can take... What?
He just blocked the rook's connection.
Because there's knight C5. There's knight C5 and knight B3 check.
Oh,
Bishop H7, knight C5. What a find by MVL.
An exclamation point, well deserved here. 2 minutes on the clock, king D6, the best move in the position. And now knight C5 is going to happen anyway. White's position is completely shattered. The pawns are terrible. He was counting on bishop takes H7.
Now his position is bad. Yeah, the knight goes to C5. Rook can go to F7. F4 is weak. F3 is weak. The A pawn is a threat.
This has completely flipped around. That entire sequence from Arjun, completely shattered his entire pawn structure. He did it for the H pawn only.
He wants to go rook G7 after knight C5, but I wonder what happens if MVL just plays rook B6 to B7. Fights as hard as possible for that.
You called it.
That A pawn is coming soon.
It is. The A pawn is about to go. A4, A3. I mean, at the moment, what are the threats? Rook D8. That's definitely a big one with the idea of rook takes on D5.
I'm tempted to throw in knight B3 check because I know there's this rook D8 check coming. I don't know if it's now, but knight B3 check and pushing the A pawn. Maybe you get mated as black, but if you don't get mated, you're coming in quicker.
Yeah, but you have to remember that's that's a tough decision to make. King C6. He walks into the pin.
Walking it, that's
bold for sure. But you know what? He's got the two rooks covering the pawn. And he's saying the knight's on a dark
square. Look at that move. Incredible. The knight is pinned. If the bishop gets to D5, it also defends against A2. All of a sudden, counterplay from white. Counterplay from white.
Oh, yeah. And look at the time. Coming up to a minute. This is all over the place. Bishop D5 is check. The rook can go to B8
The king is going to the wrong side. You take on D5, as you said, rook B8 or rook B2.
This is amazing for white all of a sudden. What has happened?
The pieces are being dominated here. White is able to push that king to the corner without sacrificing anything.
I can't believe he didn't take it. You know what? He's still got
That's professional.
I can't be too critical.
He's
always got bishop D5, but instead he wants to get his own pawn going. You have to take it now, though, right?
Take it now, but then maybe he plays F6.
F6 is playable. I really think for safety, you got to take it.
He might take and play king E3. Just get the king out of the way. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Somehow king E3, king D4 looks really nice to me.
I really like the move rook B8. It feels right because you don't want to put a piece on B7. Force the king. Now maybe king E3. F6, right? How do you deal with rook D7? The knight on C5 is hanging.
It's hanging with check. That's all right. So F6 or king E3 stand out to me. But
I mean, even rook a2, what are we talking about, right? That's a serious idea.
Rook a2, king a4. It feels like we're close to mate. I wish we could play king c3 there, but Arjun has a bunch of good moves here. What is he choosing? Oh, rook c3. He notices if king a4, he can at least repeat a couple of times, win some time on the clock.
Yep, and he's not going to use that repetition to, of course, take the draw. That would be suicide here because a draw means MVL wins. f6, he's always got f6. The bishop is... The one thing I don't like about rook c3, rook c5 is not with check anymore. So I feel, you know, not as great about that, but he's still in the driver's seat. f6 is always there, rook c4 if he wants to gain some more time.
f6, I was trying to calculate like rook d7.
Yep.
There's rook c4 check.
Yep. I thought that was a critical moment there. Now, the thing is, he could just exchange the rooks here.
And push.
And push.
And he can push.
He's always got the rook a8 move, and the fact that his rook is hanging doesn't matter because of queen.
And when you push, you're preparing to go rook d8, rook takes d7.
Yep.
So he's going to go f7, and then rook d8.
Good.
If rook c5, there's bishop e6. The a pawn is controlled.
Yep.
The f pawn is one square away from queening, and rook d8 is coming in. And then you queen with check.
Yeah, I mean, even f8.
30 seconds here for MVL. What is he going to find? Does he have any tricky moves left? Because the play is too easy for Arjun.
He's way up on time.
You can go rook d8 as well.
Yep,
because
that's
you
right.
could queen.
Will he take this? That's a check. What a tricky idea.
That's a very, very good trick. You can take. But the problem is you can do anything you want now. You can go king e3, king e2.
He's so tricky, Maxime. He wants the king to go to the d file, and he'd probably go back to c7.
But he's running out of time here.
Yeah.
And the king is going to go to g3, no more checks. And eventually he's taking, look at that.
Oh
look
my
at that
goodness.
technique.
The technique from Arjun Erigaisi and Genji. He wins with the white pieces in Armageddon, wins on demand to win the match against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave.
What a match. Just when it looks like MVL was getting closer and closer to a good position or securing qualification, Arjun got behind that king, forced it to the side, and the technique was impeccable.
Yeah, and you know, he